call the roll. Ways and Means Budget Committee will come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Here.
Commissioner Marecki,
Here.
Commissioner Bejun,
Present. Can you hear me?
That was Commissioner Scott.
yes, thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Anderson,
Nope.
Commissioner Anderson, Vice Chair Palomera,
Here.
Chair Vargas.
Here.
You have a quorum
Anderson's
present.
here. Anderson's here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Mhm.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, Commissioner Beydoun is here because I see him on the line, even though we can't hear him. I don't know how to do that, but we'll consider him here unless our rules don't allow that. Next item, please.
Item B, Chairwoman's remarks.
I have none today. Next.
Item C, budget presentation. Number 1, Commissioner Auditor General.
Thank you. Go ahead, Madam Auditor General.
Actually, I believe this was the commission's budget with Auditor General included.
I believe Chair Bell wanted to make some opening remarks.
Is she still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I
Good
just
morning.
want to make a few remarks. Last year's budget was quite successful. As always, we were good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we were able to do some things to improve our operations. As you know, we had cameras installed and new microphones in the chambers, and that was something that was help the public to look at our meetings. And then we also provided iPads to all commissioners, which I guess was wise at the time because we use them now more than we ever anticipated using them. This was an effort to go wireless. We never knew that we would be Zooming as much as we're Zooming right now, but the effort for the iPads were to be a more paperless society with the commission, and I think we've achieved that, and they've come in handy also with Zoom during this pandemic. I'm going to allow, of course, Tim and Mark to give some of the details, but I just wanted to do some of the highlights, which again are the iPads, the cameras in the chambers, also increases to our staff salaries. They had not had increases in over 5 years. So a 2 to 3% increase in salaries was also in this last budget. And even with all of that, we were still under budget. So I'm happy to turn it over to Tim and Mark to go through some of the details. If you have any questions, we'll all take them after we've done our remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go first? Tim?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Essentially, our proposed budget is a status quo budget from the previous year, just some slight variances. Mark could probably address some of the technical issues in terms of where the money is placed into what line items. In terms of expenditures for the coming year, we really don't have any major ones. In fact, we think when we do get back to the office, it will coincide with the expiration of our copy machine leases. And I think we can maybe downscale what we have in terms of our copiers, which will save some dollars. The commission also last week voted on some CARES dollars for laptops. And I think we're going to take advantage of that for some of our people that have older computers or who don't have laptops to take at home. So that's kind of an overview of the budget. I'll let, before we get to Marcy with the AG's report, I'll ask Mark if he has any technical comments.
Mark?
Thanks, Tim, and thank you to our chairs. Just a few comments. As Tim had indicated, this really is a status quo budget. And if you separate the items that the commission really controls versus those things that are allocated to our budget, you can see that the operations that the commission controls, there's virtually no increases proposed. We're talking about a net cost this year of $10,181,000 versus $10,029,000, which is really negligible in context. But let me give you some specifics. If you look at, and I broke it down by detail, I'm going to talk about some things that may not necessarily be noticeable here. But chargeback revenue for indirect costs, which is really obtained through the Auditor General's and Policy Department, goes from $1.4 million to $1.7 million. And we have credits for a CARES allocation of $146,000. So we are being credited in this next budget for the period from October 1st to December 31st for costs that we will be incurring for COVID type charges that can be allocated to the grant that we're getting or the monies that we're getting from the federal government. And that's $147,000. And some of that is showing as why the salaries, if you look at the analysis, decreases by $216,000. 90-some thousand dollars of that is care related. And the other part of it is, as Chair Bell had indicated, last year we had proposed salary increases that did not come to fruition. And that was about $125,000. And you can see the effect of that is also on fringes, and the effect is also on pensions. So those are significant reductions. Now, the one oddity is other charges. Now, what happened was, again, those items other than salaries are things that are really allocated to the commission budget. This being a status quo budget, what the CEO is proposing that for those reductions were just kind of lumped into other charges. So it appears kind of odd. And again, status quo, and as I had indicated yesterday, the whole process this year was very abbreviated. We didn't go through the vetting process that we generally go through. So on a going forward basis, what we will be doing is dealing with not only those items that we may control, but those items that are controlled by the CEO, chargebacks, healthcare, pension, will be modified through budget adjustments. And if there is a modification needed, it would come in through the offset against that other charges account that's noted on the analysis. So those are really the highlights, and all departments really are insignificant adjustments to what was proposed last year, and last year we were under budget.
What was our total expenditure for last year? Do you have that?
I don't have the exact number, but we will end the year with probably giving back approximately $1 million.
Okay. How much did we start with?
10,029,000.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members? Well, Madam Chair and team, you did great. We don't seem to have any questions.
Oh, okay. That ours was pretty comprehensive and easy. So we thank you for your time.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm not on this committee. This is Commissioner Daub.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Bell, or Chair Bell, so I'm looking at the travel expense line, and is that, I'm seeing that it's about the same as last year. Will that be used for traveling to conferences?
That's a placeholder for conferences and education opportunities for commissioners. I would suspect that, well, I won't suspect, I know we will not use that entire line item because I suspect that many organizations will not have as many conferences and educational opportunities that they had in the past years, but that is where that line is for.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Chair Varga, would Marcy be able to deliver her report now?
Yes, I was waiting for others to chime in, but if there's no other questions, then Marcy, please go ahead.
And Mark said the Auditor General's budget is
Oh,
included
I'm
within the.
sorry. I'm sorry. Commissioner Anderson did want to ask.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to, I guess
Sorry.
the question, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had a question about the copiers. What was mentioned, if we downsize those or take a lower model, just want to make sure that we have all the features that they currently have.
Correct, Commissioner. Our current model has, it's more of a case of how many pages per minute. That determines, the cost of the model. But we can downsize that, go with a slower copier, but still have the other bells and whistles that we currently have.
Okay. Yeah, because I know sometimes it really gets a workout on the 7th floor. So if that's when you're talking about the main one on the 7th floor, it could potentially, if we're not careful, could cause a bigger problem. So just, I know you'll do your job and look into it to make sure we have the capacity to handle 15 commissioners' offices and in the chair's office. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Marcy.
Mark said the Auditor General's budget is included within the commission, but just some of the highlights of the Auditor General's budget. In addition to the $1.1 million in revenue, the Auditor General's office also receives $40,000 because we have an agreement with the Treasurer's office to do an audit for the stadium excise tax, where we go out and ensure that all the hotels and rental car agencies are submitting their taxes. So that's $40,000 we get each year from the Treasurer's office. Also included within our office is a commission budget. Right now there's $5,000 on the line. This is an audit that's done every 2 years of the commission. It will probably go out to bids probably around February, March of 2021, and depending on when they get started, we'll determine whether we need additional money on the line. But right now, the $5,000 will be a holder for us until we see when it's going to get started. And really, everything else is status quo.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by any commissioners? Okay, thank you. In that case, we can go on to the next item, please.
Next item, item 2. It's a report from the CEO.
Alrighty, who's going to give this this report, Kevin or the CEO? There you go, Mr. Newsom, I see you.
Okay, so I will start it. Actually, Khalil Rahal was planning on being on the call, but
wait for 1024
I
to
don't know
tell
if he's
me.
joined
Yeah, I
yet.
don't have your email. She sent it to me.
I don't know if he's joined yet, Madam Chair. But if we want to keep going as opposed to wait till 10:30, I can probably fill in.
He's actually joining now, Chair.
Okay,
there
he's joining. I see. Okay, go ahead. Start your discussion, Mr. Newsom. Khalil, I see Khalil now.
Sorry.
Khalil was going to lead it.
He's going to lead it. Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning to the rest of the board. And thank you all for giving us this opportunity. Obviously here to talk about the CEO's budget. Our county executive department, I think, has a bunch of great leaders in it that I think have done a fantastic job over the last few years. And in this last year, in particular, handling the pandemic, the fiscal crisis, and our response to small businesses. You have a budget in front of you about $5.1 million. I think it represents about 24 positions. I know we have some vacancies, but I know, executive leadership is very important. We plan on filling those vacancies. And so, I don't believe that this is an increase from last year. And so I think our hope is, and the year going forward is to continue that executive leadership. We don't know if a second wave is going to come. We don't know if it comes, how bad it's going to be. We don't know how much it's going to affect our collections and our revenues. We don't know what the future of assessments is going to look like. And we don't know if there's going to be any federal help. And so obviously our executive leadership, even though we are contemplating a lot of these things, we're working very, very hard to make sure that we serve the best of our citizens in Wayne County. I think, it starts at top with the county executive, then it goes to the deputy county executive, the chief of staff, Assad Turfy, Janelle Allen, myself, obviously Huey Newsom from management and budget, James Heath from Corporation Council, and others, make up a central nucleus of a team that I think really has done one of the best jobs in the state of handling all the challenges that we're facing today. So I know you have the budget in front of you. I know we've got Kevin Haney on the phone. He's, knows the budget better than anybody. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Newsom, did you want to make some remarks?
No, I will just say, to echo what Khalil was saying, right now, the county executive, as you see in the narrative provided, we have a lot of challenges in front of us, and clearly, we have some positions that we need to fill. But, we have a lot of challenges in front of us. It's very important that, we tried our best to be as frugal as possible. We didn't ask for any additional money, even though, we have the challenges have increased, but the budget ask is really not. It's relatively the same. So just wanted to iterate that point.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Can you hear me? Because yesterday you couldn't. Okay,
Yes.
good. I think I had my volume turned down. There's a reason why you couldn't hear me yesterday.
Oh.
No, I don't have anything specific to the CEO's office. I would like to give you some general guidelines when you're having these discussions. If I can take a minute or two to do that.
Sure.
You are going to see reductions countywide in pension. Some of that is COVID related, and some of that is just a reduction in pension to get back to the actuarial amount. You are going to see a reduction for many departments in salaries and wages in year one in 21, and then you're going to see it restored in 22. Those are going, and that's going to be as well for salaries and wages, for health care, and for pension. So what you'll see is when you see your reports, you're going to see a reduction in 21, and then when you compare it to 22, you're going to see an increase in 22. Those are all COVID-related savings. The COVID-related savings, currently right now, there's some operating costs that are being built into the various department budgets, but for the most part, those savings are going to be salaries and wages related. So salaries, wages, and fringe benefits. So you're going to see that. So when you see a drastic reduction in the sheriff's office, for example, in salaries and wages, that's all COVID. The same, and it's spread throughout the county. There's, in 21, we have a $24 million COVID-related savings in the general fund, $29 million countywide. So, and this is a perfect example where you see salaries and wages are going down compared to the 20 budget for the CEO's office, and it's going to increase in 21. That's a perfect example is what you see. So that's basically the guidelines that we did the budget on. We tried to restore everyone back to 20 levels other than the COVID stuff. And we're filling the gaps with what we consider one-time revenue sources, the $30 million for DTRF program money, things like that. But globally, those are the guidelines that we tried to do the budget on. We may have missed some, we may have overstated some, So at the end of the day, it's going to wash, but each department's going to have their own little issues, if you will. With that, I don't have anything specific to the CEO's office or any of the other departments just yet, but if you want to ask me any questions, I'm more than willing to answer.
Okay, so if I understand it properly, if someone looks at the budget, it's going to look like you've actually cut, but you didn't because you filled it with COVID dollars.
Right. So the way it works is that there's
Just
a
wanted to be
transfer.
sure I understood.
Yeah. There's a transfer from the department to the COVID fund. That's where Matthew is housing all the expenses. So you're going to see a reduction in the operating units.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Marecki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin or whoever, has there been any thought of what's going to go on with any of the leases that we have, like in the Guardian building? People are getting so comfortable remotely working. How about companies that are paying rent in the Guardian? I mean, has anybody like thought about that in the future? Are our leases, are they staggered with different companies, or could we like really see a hit coming up if people decide they don't need to go back to work?
And I can take that, Kevin, if you want. It's a great question, and it's really difficult to answer. I can tell you that we're getting mixed messages from our tenants. Obviously there are certain size companies who could save a lot of money on office space. There are certain offices that are yearning for personal interaction and want to keep it even for a couple days a week. But the good news is we are locked into some long-term leases, and I'll give you just one quick example. The Smith Group, which is a larger company, takes up about 4 floors right now in the Guardian building, just re-signed a 10-year lease before COVID. Have people reached out to us and asked us for some relief on leases? They have. Have we provided a lot of relief? I would say we have not. I will tell everybody that we did provide some relief to the folks on the very first floor in the promenade, the restaurants, the green room, the Crazy Gringos, and Pure Detroit, and Great Lakes Coffee. But that did not generate a whole lot of revenue for us, and so we're doing okay. From a revenue standpoint, the Guardian building now, okay is relative. As Kevin will always, he knows this. We don't always do all the capital that we need to do here at the Guardian. The Guardian always needs more capital projects. Can always use more capital projects because it's a very unique and expensive building to manage. But I think we're going to be okay. We've talked about this a lot with our management team, and we have been checking in with tenants. And we haven't had a tenant ask us to completely get out of their lease yet. And so I do think time will tell a little bit, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, to that point,
Yes.
Khalil, do we generate any revenue from weddings that are held at the Guardian building?
We do.
And so I'm guessing no weddings have been held
right
this entire time. So that has, do you have any idea how much revenue we've lost from that?
It's not a lot.
Okay.
It's not a huge chunk. I can tell you that ever since we have taken out Roland Cafe at the Promenade, and we've, opened up Great Lakes Coffee, and we've opened that up for weddings, our events increased dramatically here, but it did not produce like dramatic amounts of revenue.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just wondering because, losing a whole summer of wedding season. So hopefully we can get that back in for next summer.
Right.
Thank you.
I bet the clerk's office also lost quite a bit because she used to have a lot of weddings.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any other commissioners who would like to ask a question? Mark? Anyone?
If there are no commissioners, may I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Sure may.
Kevin, I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to kind of confirm my understanding. When you do look at the budget summaries, you're right. We're seeing reductions in salaries, fringes, and pension, and most of that is the offset of monies coming from COVID. But what are we experiencing now as far as like the per capita cost for healthcare? Is it status quo, or will we expect an increase in the per capita cost of healthcare? Do you know the answer to that?
So the assumption is that Blue Cross in the 20 budget is skimming off any kind of COVID costs for our county employees and their families, if you will. So the COVID related costs are being skimmed off. So what's coming back to the county is pure Blue Cross costs for 20. That had to be my baseline for 21. Unfortunately, because of the lockdown, that no one was going to the doctor. So the Blue Cross number or the health number is a risk number that we have to take. But at the end of the day, good, bad, or indifferent, I have to pay those costs. And those costs, what we do is on a quarterly basis, is we reapply those costs to the various county departments, and it's called a true up cost to make sure that everyone's paying the exact same amount. But that's a good point, Mark, and I should have mentioned that. But that is a risk factor. Is the fact that as the lockdown eases, people are going to start going back to their doctors, and there may be the higher acuity rate because they didn't do anything for the last 6 months. So, but that's a risk factor. But I don't have a better answer than what I just stated, Mark.
Well, we're always alleging that as we get clarity on any aspect of the issues and the uncertainties associated with the budget, we'll have to deal with it in budget adjustments. So this is just one of those items, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. Just one other thing, actually just two. One is pension. We'll get into that when we get into retirement, but since we've got you here, just to kind of lay the foundation, our arc is not that significantly different than it had been in the past, correct?
That's correct. It actually has gone down. And it's gone down on both sides of the fences. So it's gone on the DB plan. It's gone down, I want to say maybe $500,000 or thereabouts, from 52 down to 51 and change.
Which is actually a very good sign considering the drop in the market when the pandemic first hit. So that's actually a good recovery point.
Well, yes and no, but you got to remember that the actuarial cost is based on 2019. So you won't see any kind of hit for the pension until 2022, probably.
No, I think that there's generally been recovery, and there is the smoothing effect that they use.
There's a smoothing, that's what I was about to say. There's a smoothing effect that it'll be minimized, if you will. It'll be minimized over a couple of years. But the current cost is based on 2019, the actuarial report for 2019, which COVID wasn't even a twinkle in their eyes at that time.
Fair point. Thank you.
On the DC side, as always, we're fully funding the DC plan to make sure that that's 100% funded. It always has been, always will. That's Plan 4, if you will, and some smaller aspects to Plan 5, I think, might still be around. Okay. Those get fully funded, so that's not something that the commission has to worry about or has ever had to worry about.
Okay, and then the last item, Kevin, deals with the CARES money. There was the presentation yesterday where we talked about the monies that may be available, and it came to like $206 million. And I know that we have a budget this year that says $76 million, so that means that $130 million for the period ending September 30. And we know we've only spent 77, so that leaves 53 million that may be spent this year. So I'm assuming that we will also have adjustments in reconciliation related to Fund 298, which is the COVID-19 fund.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So, we're doing a technical adjustment because we missed some small dollars in the COVID fund. So we're doing a technical adjustment for that. That's not a big deal. In the COVID fund, in the 76 million that you're talking about, and that really falls under non-departmental as part of the budget, we have $30 million sitting out there as a placeholder for the economic development program, giving monies to small businesses and stuff like that. In the current year, in 2020, we have $50 million out there. So what we're basically doing is double dipping in the sense that I have $50 million. So if Khalil's able to spend all $50 million before 9/30, then I have to do a budget adjustment, removing that $30 million in 2021.
Right. And
Or reconciling the $50 million down to $20 million, and then the $30 million is okay, or 25 and 25. So in some respects, this COVID fund is sort of a double dip. And we're trying to get our hands around it. I'm trying to get my hands around it to figure out what's true 20 cost versus what's true 21 cost. But right now, Mark, I would say that you can't really look at the 20 budget and say, okay, you've got 188 million plus another. And we just found out yesterday it's not 18 million, it's 19 million. So we got 207 million to play with.
So again, my point is that deals where we're going to have to really deal with budget adjustments on a going forward basis.
Absolutely.
To deal with clarity.
Right. So now you don't want to think, I don't want the commission to sit there and say, wait a minute, Kevin's got 188 million on the 20 budget and he's got $76 million on the other budget, the 21 budget. So some of these things are bleeding together, and that I have no way to fix that right now.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Thank you, Mark. Alrighty. Well, thank you for your presentation, and I'm sure this is a very difficult budget to put together, but we'll keep working at it all along, and we'll make adjustments as we have to. Next item, please.
Item 3, management and budget.
Alrighty. Who is going to make the presentation on this one?
That will be me, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, thank you again, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to come before you all. I think management and budget has we're in a situation now that we've talked a lot about. Some of the challenges that management budget has against it in terms of being able to account for and budget for all of the financial responsibilities that the department has. We had to cut the budget or cut positions, but we've restored those positions despite the fact that there's we did a 5% cut in chargeback units to balance the budget. I think the big thing for management and budget, and for those, I'm happy to walk through each of the different functional areas. So I think the key thing for management and budget going forward in all of its departments, grants compliance, benefits and disability administration, procurement, budgeting, Kevin, had to come back to help us in that regard. Financial reporting, which, is responsible for the CAFRA and managing the general ledger. I think the key thing for us right now is, getting the ERP up and running. And this budget proposal does have, I think, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, about $9 million associated with continuing the ERP project, as we definitely need to have our systems updated, our financial accounting systems updated throughout the county, not just in Indeed, but throughout the county and all the different departments. This is ultra critical. And so we always have challenges with staffing. We have restored the field positions are there. There are a number of different positions that are also added. But the goal for this department going forward is finding ways to continue to improve our ability to have controls over the resources of the county eventually get the ERP up and running, which includes, I'm oversimplifying when I say ERP, but it's the, it's the payroll system, it's the cash investment management system in treasury, and it's the and obviously the ERP itself, which is responsible for the general ledger. And so with that, I think I can leave it to questions, so that you all can get a better feel for the budget that we're proposing. But I will close by saying this: the total budget in the 21 recommended is 28.7, and it does include I'm sorry, 31 million. That does include 9 million for the ERP. And thanks for putting that on the screen.
Did Corp Council get a raise?
When you say, Kevin, I don't know if you can answer that question. I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
Why would you think Corp Council got a raise?
I was asked to ask that question, so I'm asking the question.
Okay, not to my knowledge. If there was something in their CBAs, and this is a county-wide statement again that I should have said before. If there's something in their CBAs, we put it in there. If there's not something in their CBAs, we didn't put it in there. So not to my knowledge.
Okay. Can we look into that and get it back to me? The question
Sure.
was how Corp Council receives raises and bonuses of up to $4,000, and if there is such a deficit, their contract is online.
Well, the contracts, they're going to get whatever the contract says on the rank and file lawyers, if you will. People get promotions and things like that. That it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a Marecki term. I thought I'd throw that out there.
It is what it is. Sorry. Okay. What I will do is I'll send you a set of questions through Mark Abel.
Okay.
As we get done with each, and that will be my thing. As we get done with each day, we have our budget meetings. Whatever questions I have, I'll send it in an email through to Mark, and he'll get those answers for me. Alrighty. Any questions from members? Any discussion? I don't see any hands up in the chat room.
Oh, Madam Chair, I have a question, but I'm not on the committee, so
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. So in our analysis packet, there was a question that says, is the department experiencing funding shortfall in any area? And the department is sufficiently funded to support functions of this division. I'm vice chair of the audit committee, and every time we have an interaction with management and budget, we hear about how short-staffed the department is and how they really can't get to everything that we're asking them to do because they just don't have the employees.
Right.
So.
And let me also, if you go down to number 8, for instance, or even number 7, to probably even bring that up a little bit better. So we're the way that question was answered, I answered it. So the way that question was answered was, look, we have money that we're putting in for these positions, but you see there are a number of vacancies, right? So you see, right now we're at 28. We would go down. Right now we're at 28 vacancies in the department. So the funding's there. The problem is filling the position. And so, I look at it like, this is something that's probably going to be my top priority once we get this budget adopted, is, okay, what are we doing in terms of staffing if we can't draw the talent that we need? Do we rethink? I'm not going to say the R word, reorganization, but do we need to think through okay, we've got the ERP coming in, we've got these skill sets within the department, because we have so many vacancies and we're struggling to hire people. Do we need to rethink how this ecosystem works between technology, process, process definition, and the staff that we have, right? I was actually on the audit committee when the capital was presented. I didn't talk, but I did hear it. And the first thing that popped in my head was, well, we can't continue to, do the same thing over and over again. We have to rethink this. And I don't know the answer yet, but one thing that we want to do is, well, if we can't, for whatever reason, we can't fill these positions, then how do we utilize technology, and how do we understand our processes and make them a certain way so that we can, make sure that these audit findings aren't persistent.
Do you think that the 28 vacant positions are vacant in part because the salaries being offered are too low?
I think that could be part of it. I think that there's, the market in this area, I have to think of it in terms of the market, the overall market, right? I think that, we go through a process, we negotiate with unions, we come to a point that we agree on what the salaries are going to be. A lot of these vacant positions, as you can see, are, if you look at the titles, you can see that they're union, they're CBU positions. And so I think that it's a combination of a number of different things, notwithstanding the fact that there's so much competition for these positions. Now, going forward, the question then becomes, now that we're in a recession and hiring starting to slow down, do we expect that 28 number to remain so high? And I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not that's the case, as opposed to just throwing money at the problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can everybody see the Zoom group chat? When someone is asking questions, Mr. Abel, do we want to, going through the budget process, do we want to get these questions copied down so we can get answers as best we can, or should we go ahead and try to address them during our discussions now?
I think if the administration has responses to them, I mean, they're welcome to provide them. Otherwise, we will try and get answers to them at some point in the future.
Okay. Anyone from the administration would like to address any of these in the Zoom group chat? I would like to have our budget be as transparent as possible, with everyone being at the table. So I also would appreciate these be put in emails to me so I can also get you the answers to the best best way I can to you who are on Zoom chat or otherwise. So go ahead, Mr. Newsome.
I was just going to propose that if we have them recorded and documented, the administration will work to provide a written response via email if that's what commission staff and the committee prefer, and we can do that way. We have, I hate to use the term audit trail, but we kind of have an audit trail so that we can share that with the general public and those that pose the question in the first place. That would be my proposal.
Okay. Just so we can get answers for them, that's my main idea. So for those who are listening on Zoom, if you do have any other questions, please ivarg@waynecounty.com, and we'll get you the answers the best we can. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask a quick question about the report from the budget from the Auditor General, where they had recommendations. I think there's some of those that we should consider and the budget instructions. And when we get to that point, I would like to see if we can have a list of those things from the auditors, what they would recommend. And I know there were a number of things yesterday that were mentioned, and I think we need to maybe as a committee discuss each of those.
Okay, we can do
I would
that.
just ask that we do that, and maybe ask the Auditor General to prepare a list of those that we can then decide whether or not we want to put language in to address those.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Mark, do we want to put the budget instructions from last year to the commission members early? And then if they have any other suggestions, then they can work on it during the month. So that way, all we have to do is add in our new ones.
We were actually working to have budget instructions ready, but it wasn't going to be until the latter part of the process. But we were hoping to have it get to the commissioners with plenty of time to address any matters that they consider to be important to be incorporated. So we will try and get those as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay, Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just hoping we give Marcy plenty of time to put those together, and not. I think you should have enough time, but it's very I think beneficial, the report that you gave yesterday, and I'd like to see us follow through with it, was to discuss it as far as a budget instruction. That's all. Thank you.
It won't take long to put the list together, then we can work with Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds good. Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarifying question on the state grants, the revenue sharing portion. How much of a decrease are we anticipating?
I'll take the first stab. Kevin, did you want to take it? I could.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, typically, we have been receiving right at 52 million, a little north of 52 million. And the state came back in, about a month ago and told us that our last payment of that 52 million for 2020 was going to be changed. I'll put it that way, so that we weren't going to receive 12 of the 52. We instead were going to, receive. We weren't going to receive anything. It was going to be replaced with restricted CARES money, right? So basically, we got 40 million out of 52 million this year of general fund, general purpose money, which is typically how that money is used, and they replaced it with 19 million of restricted funding, which, of course, obviously, we've already gotten our allotment, and we were struggling with how do we spend this money. We can't use it for normal general fund, general purpose purposes. So going forward in this budget, and Kevin will correct me if I'm wrong when I give him the floor, we assumed that it was going to again be 40 million because that's the best we had in terms of being able to do a projection, in terms of what that looks like. So in 21's budget, I believe it is 40 million.
That's correct. It's 40 million, but in the 21 budget, we're not getting the 19.
Thank you. That's very important. Right, that's very important.
And this is due to COVID-19, or are there other issues or concerns or reasons behind that?
Officially, what we were told is budget cuts at the state, and obviously you have revenue losses, right? So that money is shared money that comes from state sales tax. And so, but obviously the economy's going down because of COVID, and the state did cut the payments because they have received and are anticipating a reduction in sales tax revenues.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh,
Okay.
Madam Chair, just
Yes, go ahead.
one other question. The Airtropolis, there's an estimated budget needed for it was for the 2020 year. Is that going to be the same for the next, let's see, yes, the next budget year or this budget cycle?
The Airtropolis, the Pinnacle, are you referring
The
to?
Detroit region, Airtropolis, yes. It says that it was 100 million that was, I'm sorry, 100,000, not 100.
Yeah, I don't think we've changed that. We rolled that over.
Okay.
I'd have to dig deeper to give you 100% guarantee, but we rolled that over. That was the intent.
So there hasn't been much movement on it because
No.
it's still the same. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have just one question.
Sure, Mr. Abel.
Thank you. Just to kind of in line with the questions that Commissioner Dodd had asked, Huey, I'm glad you were at the last audit meeting because there were inefficiencies associated with, I think it's two matters that came to light, staffing issues as well as the ERP system. And I've always said that I believe that we have a significant amount of inefficiencies, full-time equivalent inefficiencies associated with our antiquated J.D. Edwards. So my question is, are we still online to go live with that as we had previously anticipated? And maybe you can remind us of when that is.
Yeah, so the most recent go live date, quote unquote, for the ERP is a year from now, really. It's supposed to be the end of next fiscal year. It originally was supposed, because of COVID, we had to address that and push it back. So payroll or HCM, what's called HCM phase 1A for HCM was slated to go live in October, is now slated to go live potentially January, but I don't, the consultants have not nailed down a new go live date quite yet. They're close. They're going through a reassessment, replanning effort to give us a go live date for HCM. So the way it's supposed to work is payroll, time management, payroll, benefits management should go live first. Then the GL system or the ERP, which is the heart of your finance and accounting, goes live at the end of the fiscal year. So if everything goes according to plan right now, in 21 you'll end the fiscal year with ERP. But it's something that we, the administration is monitoring very carefully. We have some delays that could be tied to COVID, but we definitely have to get this thing up and running soon.
Very good.
And
Thank you.
it's a heightened priority for us. I'll put it that way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any committee members, any commissioners who joined us? Commissioner
Madam
Dodd,
Chair.
thank you for joining us.
Oh, sure.
Always welcome.
Actually, I have one last question, if I may. So Commissioner Baker McCormick reminded me of something, and I don't think it's on any of the budgets we're talking about today, but I just wanted to ask, airport parking fees, is that on anything that we're talking about today? And if not, where would that be on the budget? Airport
parking is part of, it's being funded. First of all, I'll tell you, we're only getting $12 million as opposed to $22 million in the 2020 budget. But it's part of the wellness, HHS, or whatever they're called nowadays. So they're part of that budget. You'll see from there.
Like the Health, Human, and
Yes.
Veteran Services?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would not have thought it would be on that budget. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Well, they're part of that budget because they're primarily funding public health and funding jail medical